until now. If Diddy were to get a sentence longer than a year or two, I suspect he would appeal that sentence. And depending on the legal precedent, depending on the recent history, depending on the feds, they have a calculation here as well. I just don't see Diddy getting more than a year and a day. That's my gut. I mean, I've seen people involved with shootings. I've seen people do federal perjury. I've seen people I've seen too many things get a couple years to see Diddy get more than that for a prostitution charge. Again, I ain't saying Diddy doesn't deserve accountability, and I'm not saying that he's morally innocent. Just saying he won, and when you win, you win, and I just don't see much else coming out of that. Prosecutor Maureen Comey said the government will seek a 20-year maximum for Combs. Of course, the 20-year maximum is the maximum of 10 years combined, right? The maximum of 10 on each count. I don't know if they'd run consecutive or concurrent. In practice, I understand that they could run consecutively, but that also doesn't seem likely. I can't imagine Diddy getting 20 years for transportation and prostitution. And again, all the awful things that he did, he was not found guilty of. And so you can't weigh those factors in. By the standard of the law, he wasn't guilty of those things. So it's going to be tough. I hear people saying time served. I don't know if it'll be time served. I think he's going to get a year and a day, but I can promise you he ain't getting 20 years. I can absolutely guarantee you that he will not get 20 years. I can also guarantee you, no, I won't guarantee you. I think that it is likely that Diddy, before sentencing, will be he'll be released. I can't imagine that Puff won't be released. It's tough to keep him in there for this. When you say he's part of a racketeering conspiracy, when you say he's blowing up Kid Cudi's car, when you say that he's kidnapping people,
linking that enterprise to it.
When we're dealing with the witness
tampering, I don't think it was
when you're talking all of that, yeah, it's easy to keep him in as a threat to society, as a flight risk. But now, looking at a minimal sentence that hasn't been found not guilty, I don't know if the court will keep him.
And Jane having that conversation. The forced labor, I think it was probably one of the weakest counts dealing with the predicate acts, and again, that's dealing with Mia and the long hours that they work, but also having put
the next question is,
as a sex slave, pretty much. When you're dealing with the drug distribution, I thought
somebody said you said he was basically guilty of all. Yeah, I think he was guilty. I do. And if I were a juror, which was the question I was asked, I would say, yeah, I think the state made its case.
And to Jane on
more
than one occasion,
made its case that he was guilty.
Is one incident within possession with intent to distribute.
I was guessing what they would do. They did something different than I thought. They were right. I mean, they were right. I was wrong though. They just did what they did. I was wrong there. I thought they find him on all counts. Although I thought the racketeering one was the weakest, I thought they would find it. I thought they were
sufficient to meet that count.
Rena, what can you tell us about the reaction in the courtroom?
Well, Diane, we know that it has been very tense in that courtroom. It has been emotional. Combs yesterday, when there was a partial verdict, we saw him wiping tears from his eyes. He was slumped over.
So I know for the rest of my life, I'm associated with this crime and
DA was Combs' enterprise. So again, linking that enterprise to it. When we're dealing with the witness tampering, I don't think it was as strong. You're dealing with D-Rock and the messages to Mia. I don't think it was that strong. Also dealing with Jane and the recording that KK recorded Sean Combs and Jane having that conversation. The forced labor, I think it was probably one of the weakest counts dealing with the predicate acts. And again, that's dealing with Mia and the long hours that they work, but also having put Cassie working as a sex slave pretty much. When you're dealing with the drug distribution, I thought that was the strongest count of the predicate acts having to deal with racketeering conspiracy, because we know the common thread that narcotics was given to Cassie and to Jane on more than one occasion, and all you have to prove is one incident within the possession with intent to distribute. You have the personal assistant saying that they were asked also to bring narcotics to give it to Sean Combs so it can be delivered during the freak-offs. And even Brendan Paul even said that on one occasion Sean Combs had him try out some narcotics, and just giving him the narcotics to try out is sufficient to meet that count.
Rena, what can you tell us about the reaction in the courtroom?
Well, Diane, we know that it has been very tense in that courtroom. It has been emotional. Combs yesterday, when there was a partial verdict, we saw him wiping tears from his eyes. He was slumped over in his chair. He was hugging his attorneys. Just a short time ago, a couple of minutes ago, we saw his family arrive back at the courthouse here. They have been here really every single day of this trial. Now, we are told that Combs was in the courtroom this morning for about 30 minutes. He was mostly reading a book, jotting down notes, and he spent most of the deliberations in a separate location. We are told, though, that everyone is making their way back to the courtroom. Lawyers from both sides, prosecutors are filling the front row of the courtroom. The judge and the jury are not inside at this point. Before this morning, though, Combs shared a moment with his family. He bowed his head. He led them in prayer. He said, "Bless this jury, bless my family." He told them to stay strong. They locked hands and they prayed. And he also hugged his defense attorney, Brian Steele, before heading to that separate location where he has been for most of these deliberations. So this is clearly a big moment. He's about to learn his fate that these 12 New Yorkers have decided for him.
Bernardo, one of the things the jury asked for in one of their several notes was to look again at Cassie's testimony about that 2016 hotel attack. That was the video of the attack was caught on surveillance of Sean Combs assaulting her, kicking her, dragging her through a hallway. And they were asking to see the testimony where she testified that she had was trying to escape one of those freak-offs when he beat her and dragged her back into that hotel room. Do you read the tea leaves there, or what does that tell you in general, that they wanted to see that testimony again? And how critical do you think that event and that video was in this case?
Let's be clear, Diane, but for that Intercontinental video, we wouldn't be here today. I can honestly say, having been a prosecutor.
I have to interrupt you. We're going to a special report with the network. Let's listen to Kira Phillips.
And good morning, everyone. I'm Kira Phillips. We're coming on the air because the jury has now reached a full verdict in the racketeering and sex trafficking trial of music mogul Sean Diddy Combs. Jurors had the court scrambling yesterday, you may remember, when they sent a note to the judge saying they had reached a partial verdict on 4 of the 5 counts, but they were stuck on the remaining racketeering conspiracy charge. The judge telling them to keep an open mind. Well, deliberation resumed this morning for a third day. The Combs trial has been going on for nearly 2 months. As you know, graphic testimony, disturbing sexually explicit images. And during yesterday's deliberations, the jury asked for a transcript of ex-girlfriend Cassie Ventura's testimony about the 2016 hotel attack that you're seeing here on your screen that was captured on surveillance video in that hotel. That video showing Combs kicking and dragging Cassie in a hallway. Cassie testified she was trying to escape one of those so-called freak-offs when Combs beat her and dragged her back into the room. The jury made up of 8 men and 4 women. Combs has pleaded not guilty to all the charges. Let's get right to our chief investigative correspondent, Aaron Katersky. He is outside the courthouse there in Lower Manhattan. Aaron, I understand now that Sean Combs has entered the courtroom.
Sean Combs is now seated at the defense table, Kira, with his attorneys. Judge Arun Subramanian has just taken the bench, instructing everyone in the courtroom to maintain decorum when the verdict is reached. It comes after about 14 hours of deliberations over 3 days, and it comes after the jury became stuck on the top charge of racketeering conspiracy, saying they had reached a unanimous verdict on 4 of 5 counts, sex trafficking and transportation for the purposes of prostitution, but had become stuck when it came to the racketeering conspiracy charge. And it's a complicated charge because it required the jury to believe that Combs, if they were to convict, was the leader of a criminal enterprise who relied on his assistants and bodyguards and other employees to commit crimes with him. And there were 8 to choose from the jury would have to find that Combs agreed to commit at least 2 of those 8 so-called predicate acts. But the judge at the time did not take a partial verdict. He instructed the jury to go back at it. It was too soon to give up. And here now, on the 3rd day of deliberations, after about 14 hours, Kira, the jury has reached a verdict.
And Aaron, I understand that, as I'm being told now, the jury is entering the courtroom. Give us a little bit of color from early this morning. Apparently, Sean Combs was allowed a moment with his family. They prayed together. Tell us about that, Aaron.
This was not the first time that Sean Combs has prayed in the courtroom. The judge was not on the bench. He asked the marshals for permission to speak with his family. There's an entire row in the gallery, the 2nd row of the gallery, reserved for Combs' family members, his mother, twin daughters and sons, all there, other family members in the courtroom as well. And he asked them to hold hands, bow their heads, and pray. And that's when Sean Combs asked for blessings for his family and also for the jury. That jury is now entering the courtroom, Kira.
And I'm told the jury is seated now. Brian Buckmeyer, our legal contributor, I want to bring you in on this. I'm going to have you comment on that in just a second. But let's talk about the RICO charge, the toughest charge here, but would bring the strongest penalty, right?
In a sense, yes. So the racketeering conspiracy, it does have a possibility of a life sentence. The reason why I say in a sense is because the sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion, that sentencing guideline has a minimum of 15 years to life. So life is a possibility whether or not RICO is met. But I think with the RICO, there's an added issue as well as to automatic forfeiture, because when you are convicted of a RICO conspiracy, the government isn't just looking to incarcerate an individual who participates, or in this case is allegedly head of that racketeering conspiracy, but also to dismantle that conspiracy or that RICO from a financial standpoint. So all the stuff we heard about Sean Combs' homes and his enterprise and the bank accounts that were used for the sex trafficking and transportation to engage in prostitution, if convicted of racketeering conspiracy, that can also be dismantled or taken by the federal government.
Is that word dropped? Is it being read right now? Okay, let's go right into the courtroom. Okay, all right. It is being read right now, I am told. Aaron, let's take it back to you as we are now hearing from the judge inside the courtroom.
So the jury, Kira, had to fill out this form, which lists the charges, proven, not proven, the predicate crimes, and whether Sean Combs is not guilty or guilty. On count 1, the racketeering conspiracy charge, Sean Combs has been found not guilty of racketeering conspiracy, perhaps the most complicated charge for the jury to understand. The count 1 had provided for a number of predicate acts, but the jury does not have to get into that because they have found Sean Combs not guilty of leading a criminal enterprise, not guilty of racketeering conspiracy. They will now move to the other 4 counts, 2 of them on sex trafficking and on and we have not guilty now on count 2, which was sex trafficking of Cassandra Ventura. Sean Combs has been found not guilty of sex trafficking when it comes to his former girlfriend, Cassie Ventura. There was a real debate that the jury heard over the course of the last 2 months about consent and coercion and the complications of deciding when an 11-year relationship between Combs and Cassie Ventura may have become a criminal one, and the jury decided it was not criminal sex trafficking when Sean Combs committed what his attorneys freely admitted was domestic abuse, as you saw in that video. He has been found not guilty now on racketeering conspiracy, not guilty on sex trafficking of Cassie Ventura. He has been found guilty on count 3, transportation for the persons, for the transportation for the purposes of prostitution. He has also been found guilty on count 5, transportation for the purposes of prostitution.